Hello, welcome to the lecture series on the course Vehicle Dynamics, Handling and Simulation. First, let us understand what we mean by dynamics. So, dynamics is a branch of physical science or a subdivision of mechanics that is concerned with the motion of material objects in relation to the physical factors that affect them: force, mass, momentum, energy. So we can divide dynamics into kinematics and kinetics. Kinematics describes motion regardless of its causes in terms of position, velocity, and acceleration. Kinetics is concerned with the effect of forces and torques on the motion of bodies having mass. Okay. So you know there are three laws of Newton. Newton's law of motion 1 that deals about inertia. Next, Newton's second law, it says mass F is equal to mass into acceleration. Newton's third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So this is what we are going to consider here in dynamics, these forces. So now in this case, the body what we are talking about is the car, vehicle. So how exactly a vehicle behaves under the influence of forces and torques is what we are going to study in vehicle dynamics. Here, imagine I have drawn a velocity versus time diagram. You have a car, right? You have a car. Let us say it starts with zero velocity here. Then it has to attain a speed of, let us say, 80 kilometers per hour. Correct? From this point to this point, vehicle accelerates. As we open the throttle, vehicle accelerates. Correct? What is the value of acceleration? At any point, you can see what is the change in velocity by time will give you acceleration. Right? So definitely there is going to be a force. Force is mass into acceleration. How much force we have to apply to the vehicle? Right? Is equal to mass times of acceleration, where m is the mass of the vehicle. And this force is the tractive force that we are going to apply at the wheels. How much force we have to apply so this vehicle of mass m accelerates, right? Now suppose it is running after reaching 80 kilometers per hour, it starts running at a constant velocity. There is no rate of change of velocity. There is no acceleration, so there is no force as such. So there will be a momentum, it will be going out there. There is no rate of change of momentum anyway. Correct? So not that if I switch off and it keeps running, no. There is no additional force or there is no rate of change of momentum. Okay, because it is running with constant velocity. Rate of change of momentum is what? Initial momentum minus final momentum. These things are not changing. Okay, time is there. Since this is not changing, so we don't say there is some additional force acting on that kind of a thing like that. Right. So it accelerates, it is at the constant velocity. Now all of a sudden I want to stop, I brake, then there is going to be change in velocity in the negative direction. I call that as a deceleration. Here again I am going to apply a force in the opposite direction like this to stop the vehicle. Okay, this is in the dynamic condition. Is also in the dynamic condition. Here it is not in dynamic condition, you can say it is in steady condition, or you can call it as a special case of static condition, steady condition. So always how exactly the vehicle accelerates, what are the forces that coming into picture, when braking, what are the forces, braking forces, how exactly the vehicle stop, how exactly the vehicle behaves in this region. In this region, this is what we are going to talk about. That is vehicle dynamics, how exactly a vehicle behaves under the influence of forces and torques. Basically, when I start opening the throttle valve, vehicle accelerates. Oh, there may be load transfer from the front to the rear. So vehicle may squat. So because of that, it will lead to pitching also. When I am deaccelerating, I am braking, the load transfers from the rear to the front. Vehicle may dive. Again, that may lead to pitching. So if the forces that are acting on these wheels, braking force, are uneven, the vehicle may even spin. Or if I apply very large brake forces, the vehicle may skid. Correct. Here, when I accelerate the vehicle, if there is not sufficient friction between the road and the tire surface, the vehicle might even spin about the z-axis. This is what we mean by how exactly the vehicle behaves under the influence of forces. So that's what we talk under vehicle dynamics, right? There are three important things that we study under vehicle dynamics. One is performance, is one of the most important metric. Second one, we call it as a handling. Third one, we call it as ride. These are the three important things that we talk under vehicle dynamics. Performance, handling, and ride. So what do you mean by performance? If you play this video, if you click on this, so you can understand what we mean by performance. Basically, how do we define performance? Suppose I have a good road with a proper mu value, dry road. So I have a vehicle here, car, let us say it is in the stationary condition now. Okay, what is the time taken for this vehicle to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour? 60 miles per hour. How much time it is going to take? If it is taking very less time, then it is a high performance car. If it is taking too much of time, no, it is a low performance car. So that's how it is defined. 0 to 60 miles per hour, that is nothing but 0 to 97 kilometers per hour or 0 to 27 meters per second in the US and UK. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in rest of the world. That's what we discuss. How much time it is going to take? Will it take 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds? That is the kind of thing. Okay. Later I'll tell you in 1 second it is not possible to do. Correct? Right? It is difficult. So in 1 second it cannot reach from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. Later I will explain when I was talking about mu circle. Why it is not possible to do so? Okay, performance refers to the motor vehicle's ability to accelerate, already explained, deaccelerate, develop, drop or pull, the minimum force when it is in the stop in a stationary condition to put it into motion, and it should have the ability to overcome wheel slipping. Also, it should have the ability to climb the hills. Correct? What is the maximum gradient it can climb? Whether this can be 35 degree, 45 degree, 50, 60 degree, what exactly it can climb. Suppose if there is insufficient friction, what really happens? Correct? There will not be enough grip between the tire and the road. How exactly it overcomes? This is what we talk about under performance. How fast it can accelerate, how fast it can stop, what is the minimum torque required to put something into motion. So when slipping is happening, right, road friction is not sufficient, how exactly vehicle overcomes that, traction. And next thing is what kind of gradient it can negotiate. All these we talk about under performance. Next is handling. What do you mean by handling? So handling is concerned with the response of the vehicle to driver's command and its ability to stabilize its motion against external disturbances. You can say ease of maneuvering and also stability. Suppose, imagine you have a car. Correct? You have a car and you are driving this car. Initially you are on a straight path, but later you come across a corner. Now when you are driving, you are steering your vehicle. Whether your vehicle can follow this path while steering, at what speed you can maneuver this. If at high speed, if I maneuver, what really happens? Okay, so many possibilities are there. You may not be able to steer it and keep exactly the same path. So something like this you may follow. That means to keep the vehicle on this path, you have to steer more. Your vehicle may be understeering. Another possibility is that you are driving at high speed, you may not even be able to do that. It may simply go tangentially like this. Then it becomes unstable. Another possibility is that the vehicle may take this path. Then you have to less steer and keep it on this. Oversteer. Or it is too much of oversteer, there is a possibility that your vehicle may simply turn like this. Again, your vehicle may become unstable. Right. Also, there is a possibility when you are taking a turn, your vehicle may slide like this and go. So this is what we deal at handling. Okay, it is all the ease of maneuverability and stability. Okay. Right. So that's what we call it as understeering and oversteering. In my PowerPoint notes, probably you click, you will get the videos. and you can really understand what I'm talking about. Okay, right. Another thing is that what we study is ride. Ride is to do with comfort. See, if you have frequency above 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, they are audible. You can hear. There are frequency less than 20 hertz. So these are the vibrations that are coming from the surfacing irregularities, like this. So what is the effect of that on the occupant? So it is to do with comfort. Great. So a vehicle should have good performance. It should be maneuverable and stable. There should be good handling. And it should have good ride comfort. Probably when I take a passenger car, I'll be looking for a reasonable performance, not very high performance, a reasonable handling, and very good comfort. But I'm talking about a sports car. Probably I'm looking for good performance and good handling. Correct. If I'm talking about, a commercial vehicle, probably handling is important. Correct. In addition to, say, performance, reasonable good performance. So that means depending on to whom we make the car, to whom we make this vehicle, or purpose for which we make the vehicle. So these can be tuned. But it is very difficult to get good performance, good handling, and good ride in a given car. If you want to provide all these kind of things, I think you have to use a lot of advanced technologies, and definitely the cost of the vehicle will be very high. Correct. So we have to compromise depending on our requirement. Definitely a sports car will have very high performance, good handling, but it will not have good ride comfort. So why this happens? Probably we'll see. We'll try to adjust the ride. It will affect the handling. Handling, if you try to adjust, then ride. So these are some, characteristics which, oppose each other. That's the kind of a situation you get. So that is the reason why it is quite difficult to do that. Anyway, we'll study. So what you need to understand is now vehicle dynamics is concerned with behavior of vehicle under the influence of forces or torques. And three important metrics are there in vehicle dynamics. One is performance, mainly how exactly the vehicle accelerates, deaccelerates. That's very important. Handling is to do with how we can maneuver the vehicle and the safety related issue. And third one is how comfort the vehicle is, that is ride issue. These are the three things that we deal under vehicle dynamics, and how exactly vehicle needs to be designed and tuned to achieve these three metrics is what vehicle dynamics is. So this is simply an introductory topic. I'm not dealing very much in detail, Arsen. So all these topics I will deal in detail in subsequent chapters. I'm just introducing, giving an idea what you come across. So sometimes vehicle dynamics becomes quite complex because of the mathematics involved. So it is better first let us to learn this, to understand the subject. You must understand the various principles and theory behind it. We have to do some vehicle modeling, and then virtually we simulate this and see how exactly vehicle behaves to get a better understanding. We also should know how to do some of the laboratory testing to find the parameters or to adjust the parameters, tune the parameters, whatever it is. Then on road, how exactly the vehicle behaves, outdoor testing on the proving ground. And also it is better if you start getting involved in accident investigations, you understand what must have happened, whether it is driver's fault or vehicle's behavior that must have led to the accident. If from that also you can get a lot of learning. So you want to become a good vehicle dynamicist, I propose you to learn following all these routes. What are the learning resources you can look at? I think these are some of the good books that are available for learning vehicle dynamics. I think one of the pioneering book is, say, Gillespie, Fundamentals of Vehicle Dynamics. Then we have Millikan and Millikan, Race Car Vehicle Dynamics. Again, Millikan and Millikan, Chassis Design. So, Bosch Handbook is there. Wong, Theory of Ground Vehicles. Genta, Motor Vehicle Dynamics, Modeling and Simulation. Like this, there are many books that are available for you to study and learn this. So probably before getting into these books, you listen to my video lectures, then probably get hold of any of these books and you start studying, then it becomes much easier for you to pick up. You want to be in tune with the everyday day-to-day technologies, better some of these journals you keep reading. And you must be familiar, you should have good mathematical background, that's very important. Particularly background of differential equations will help you a lot. Okay, understand differential equations, very important. Of course, you should have the knowledge of linear algebra, the matrices and all that. Great. Then learn how to use MATLAB, also Simulink. There's a beautiful tool, Adams, that also you can look at. Other tools that are available are CarMaker, CarSim, and so on, like this. Okay, so probably if you start working on Adams, it becomes easy. I just show you just idea what MATLAB does, what Simulink does, Adams does in the subsequent slides. Suppose what you can do using MATLAB and Simulink. MATLAB and Simulink. Suppose this is the model of a car. We call it as something like quarter car model. Suppose I have car like this. Okay. So I divide this car into 4 parts. I might simply take one part like this and start studying. That is what I call it as quarter car model. Okay. Then this quarter car model means there will be a mass, that is sprung mass we call it. This sprung mass sits on the suspension that I represent by spring and damper. This suspension in turn sits on some unsprung mass. Okay, you can say axle, then the brakes, all this you can call it as unsprung mass. This unsprung mass, it's on a tire, correct? This I can call it as sprung mass. This I can call it as unsprung mass. This I can call it as tire stiffness, which we model it as a spring. This I can call it as suspension stiffness, suspension damping. Then after that, this is rolling on a road. So I have to get the road surface. Maybe road surface is like this. Measuring the road surface characteristic, I should develop the equation. This is the road equation. That is exciting force. Write this force. Then after that, we can, using Newton's second law of motion, we can draw the free body diagram. We can write the differential equations. And for that, if the data is given, it is possible for me to simulate and find on a particular road at a particular instant what will be the sprung mass displacement, unsprung mass displacement, and what is the frequency. All these things, it is possible for me to this thing. Then what will be the effect of these parameters if I change? What will be the effect on the displacement, velocity, acceleration? You can find. Suppose there is some person sitting over here. He is continuously subjected to some kind of an excitation with a certain frequency. And if I know the acceleration also, that acceleration that is acting, so acceleration into his mass, what is the force acting on him? And what is the effect of frequency on his body? Whether this frequency coincides with the frequency of any part of his body, so that that body getting subjected to some kind of a resonance. These kind of ideas we can find. So what will be the comfort level? I can find out. Okay, so anyway, all these things we deal here. I'm just giving an idea what you can do with the MATLAB. So you can write the equations that way after drawing the free body diagram. Then if you should know real car data, then you can go on changing what really happens. And you can also, you see here, using Simulink, you can simulate. At each one of the point, you can observe the output. Correct. And you can interpret the output. Here you can give what is the type of road excitation. So at each point, you can easily find out what is happening there. Correct. From this, you can interpret and what will be the effect of parameter changes. Also, you can study. Okay. Okay. Right. Similarly, you can. So that is what you can call it as bounce motion. So vehicle pitches. What do you mean by pitches? Suppose this is your car. Correct? Let us say this is your x-axis of the car. Perpendicular to this screen, this is a y-axis. And of course, this way it is z-axis. Or if you write your car, like this. This is x-axis. This is y-axis. About this y-axis, it pitches. So for that, what we do not have to do the whole car. You can only take this much car and you can model. So side half car, I can call it. So this is front suspension, front sprung mass, front tire, rear suspension, rear sprung mass, rear tire, and this is half mass, half of the car. Now I can again draw free body diagram. write the differential equations and simulate this, how exactly the parameters affect when this is front is subjected to one excitation, rear is subjected to another excitation, what really happens. If it is pitching, what frequency it pitches, what amplitude it pitches, will it be all right to the people sitting inside occupied? These kind of understanding we can get. So what should be the right parameters for that? Okay, so like this, if you collect the data and you can simulate, and you can draw the Simulink model and you can find out. Similarly, roll. As I said, if this is your car, sorry, okay, right, let us say this is x-axis. Now what happens? Rolling happens about x-axis, pitching happens about y-axis. If there is a z-axis, then it is spinning. So rolling happens. So for that modeling, if I take this half car is enough, front half, not side half. So that is what you can call it as a front half car model. Correct? So again, this is left side, this is right side. As I said, again, you can model it, simulate it. Okay? Right, sir. That is another way of doing it. So now when we come to suspension related issues, where exactly I can place my roll center? So the vehicle roll can be kept within the limits. That's another simulation that you can think of. Right? Okay. To do all these things, you must have the data, you must write your differential equations properly, and you have to draw the Simulink diagrams and simulate it. Another thing is there is a software Adams available. So many modules are ready-made modules are available. You can just pull the components and build a vehicle you want. Like this. You can vehicle or part of the vehicle you can build. Of course, you must know the data for all these things. Data, they have to insert, like substitute or insert your data into it. Again, various road libraries are available and you can pull the road also. You can constitute. The thing is, you are not writing the equation on its own. It will write its equations. So even if you are mathematically not very strong, you can do so. With the time you can learn. Then after building the car, you can simulate for various conditions. Bump condition, pitch condition, then roll condition, correct? Hue condition. You can simulate and you can adjust, you can go on tuning the parameters. Warp condition like this. That's another thing. Front suspension tuning for ride analysis, rear suspension ride analysis, roll analysis, all things whatever I mentioned, steering analysis, all these things can be done using Adams software. I don't think you have understood, if you are able to build up 3D models, that kind of abilities if you have, and if you have an understanding of kinematics of machinery and dynamics of machinery in your undergraduate classes, it should not become very difficult to operate Adams, right? Right. Whatever you have done when you build, probably you have to test also after making components. So only if you can do an internship in a good automotive company, these facilities can be seen, or you can experience. Otherwise, in a normal institution, it is very difficult to have all these kind of facilities. One of the most important thing in dynamics is center of gravity of the vehicle. Okay, your load in the front, load on the rear. Correct. How do you find the center of gravity? Correct. In a real car, how do you find? Yes, in a model it is not a problem at all. In reality, where exactly it is located. So while making the model, we make many assumptions. While building the car, there will be many changes. Because of that, where exactly the center of gravity location happens. One is you can locate the center of gravity along x-axis. But you want to find the center of gravity, how do you find height of the center of gravity? That is the question. Right? Next, vehicle inertia is important. So vehicle inertia measuring machine, VIMM, this is the kind of machine you have. How do you find inertia? Inertia in roll x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, that is about roll axis, about pitch axis, about spin axis. How exactly you can find inertia for that machine? Okay, right. Using this machine, it is possible to find this thing. This facility is quite expensive. Okay, automatically it measures the inertia values. Then how do you find powertrain inertia? Because these are all the things which are going to affect the performance of the vehicle, handling of the vehicle, also comfort of the vehicle. So we have to have the right values for all those things. Then how do you measure this? Okay, all these equations in each of the chapters I open up. I'll show you how to develop these models and how to tune inertia values. All these things I'll be talking about. Drivetrain inertia, how do you measure this? Okay, these kind of machines. Then how do you find stiffness of suspension components, damping of suspension components? How do you find? How do you get the damper characteristic? Then you use lot of elastomers at joints. And how do you characterize those elastomers? Okay, how do you test them? Then how do you test the steering test rig so that it follows that Ackermann steering principle? Then its durability, rattle, noise, vibration, harshness. How do you test using 4-post road simulation system? How do you test the suspension, right? Then brake assembly, tire testing, kinematics and compliance, that is wheel alignments. How do you manage them? Okay, these are all certain things that you have to do inside. In a good company, car building company, if you get an internship, it is possible to get an exposure of those machines. And how do you do this? Another very important thing is how do we test vehicle on road? What are the various types of tests that we do? For that, what we require is a proving ground. Correct. Every car company will not have a proving ground. Probably there will be a common facility, and again you should get opportunity or permission to work on these things. So these are on the proving ground. There are various types of tests that we do to ensure the vehicle handling, comfort, as well as performance. So we call them as many vehicle dynamic tests. So high speed oval, Elk test, U-turn test, circular skid test, slalom test, right? Handling circuit, braking test, durability test, and all these things. How do we do all these tests? Okay, then you have to have some kind of proving ground experience, then you understand the vehicle dynamics. Anyway, these are the ways if you get involved, I think it becomes a very interesting program. Some fundamentals you must clearly know in your undergraduate classes you would have done. So be clear with while modeling, these are very important. Suppose I am representing displacement by x. Please, linear motion, another one is rotational. In your vehicle, you come across a number of rotational components. Finally, your vehicle will be moving in linear direction. Whatever, right? So displacement if we represent by x, velocity is rate of change of displacement, acceleration, mass, force. Okay, linear velocity, linear acceleration, I represent like this. Similarly, angular displacement theta, angular velocity omega d theta by dt, angular acceleration d square theta by dt square. Mass moment of inertia is equal to mk square j, mass k radius of gyration, torque. Okay. Force is mass into acceleration. In place of mass you have mass moment of inertia, and in place of linear acceleration you will have angular acceleration. Linear velocity is v, angular velocity is r omega. So angular acceleration is r alpha, like this. If it is rotating with an n rpm and the wheel has diameter d, then linear velocity is v pi dn. So again here, if you look at this d, if I make it okay 2r whatever it is, then 2 pi n will become omega. Omega into r will become v. Correct now? 2 pi r n. So here 2 pi n you can call it as omega. Omega into r is nothing but v. Power is 2 pi n t. Again 2 pi n is nothing but omega t. Correct. The power is also equal to force into velocity. Impulse is force applied for a short time. That is mass momentum, right? Mass into velocity. Because t, if I bring mass into acceleration, you get force. Inertia, mass into acceleration, or g alpha for a rotational system. So these you quite often you would have done, but still sometimes as a beginner you don't get mixed up with these simple fundamental things. So when we are talking about three types of inertia, we talk about one is area moment of inertia, another one is polar moment of inertia, another one is mass moment of inertia. When we are talking about area moment of inertia, look here. Suppose this is a plane xy. Correct now? I want to find moment of inertia about x-axis. This is area moment of inertia. So then we consider a small element with an area dx dy, that is nothing but dA, and it is rotating about y. It is the second moment of area we should take. Then we write like this: x is finally varying from say 0 to b and y is varying from 0 to h. So substitute this and you will get moment of inertia about x-axis. Same way you can find moment of inertia about y-axis. That may become hbq by 3. So know that it is h, the depth is important there, 3 times, right? Okay, power to the power of 3. That's how we can find this, right? Be careful about this. So that plays a very, very important role. In the next, I'll tell you about that. Look here. In the bending equation, suppose if you take our car chassis, if you see the chassis frame, correct? You must have observed that this height is always very high compared to the breadth. Why that is done? So now if you take one section of that, correct, one section of that, and if you find inertia, you see here, if this is B and this is H and inertia is BH cube, inertia will be very high. Correct now? Right. So what is the advantage of that? You know bending equation. Sorry. Okay, M by I is equal to E by R is equal to sigma y. Suppose if you see, if you take this, you bend, correct? What happens is, if the R is very, very large, means R, it will go up. It is EI by M. Now I is very large, R will be very large. R is very large means, you see here, it is not bending, theta is becoming large. So you want to reduce bending, I should be large. That's why depth should be more than width. That's why all beams will have very high cross section B. Depth is very high, breadth is low. So it is to, idea is to reduce bending. So polar moment of inertia. You have area moment of inertia, then about the z-axis, if you add this, we get the polar moment of inertia. Correct now? Another important thing is, you see here, T by J, this is the torque equation. Suppose a shaft is rotating about its axis. Correct now? So here T by J is equal to G theta by L. So again T by T is equal to Gj by L. Correct. If this is what you can call it as polar moment of inertia. Correct. Polar moment of inertia about z axis. So polar moment of inertia is very high. Then what is going to happen? Torque per turn will be very high. So it will resist twisting. Resist twisting. So that is very important again. Right? So should have very high J. So it resists twisting. Sorry for the disturbance anyway. Okay. Okay, then mass moment of inertia. Mass moment of inertia is given by mk square, where m is the mass K is the radius of gyration, and K is again root of I by M. Okay, this is another very important thing, right? So this is to do with the inertia force. Okay, right. So we must understand area moment of inertia, polar moment of inertia, and mass moment of inertia. Okay, and their interconnections, right? So here you can see here their importance is we should know how to compute this moment of inertia. Of course, nowadays using modeling softwares, that will not be very difficult at all, finding out this inertia. Second thing is, right, how to measure those inertia that is in the facility available. Third, what is the effect of this inertia on the vehicle behavior that you can simulate and see. Here for some of the commercial cars, I have given what are the approximate roll inertia values. Small cars, intermediate cars, large cars, small SUVs and large SUVs. Please know that mk square, now mass k meter square, kg meter square is the unit. Some approximate formula. This is 0.25 into mass of the vehicle, track width and roof height. Okay, using this it is possible to approximate the roll inertia value. So roll moment comes from center of gravity to roll center. Okay, so those values, it is only height, a distance, that's why it is meter, the unit is meter. So mass roll radius square is given, meter square. Okay, right, that roll moment. So pitch inertia about y-axis, these are the approximate values, and you see here pitch inertia kg mass into AB. A is the distance between center of gravity and the front wheel, front axle. Okay, not front wheel, front axle. B is the distance from center of gravity to rear axle. Similarly, pitch radius of gyration. So mass into pitch radius square. Pitch radius are given here. Similarly, yaw inertia, it's about z axis. Okay, right, sir. So approximate equation. These are the values, yaw radius of gyration. Okay. So powertrain inertia, these are all given. The inertia is nominally related to engine size as measured by its displacement. Value should be in the following ranges. These are taken some of the car manuals, right? And it is just to give an idea, because in subsequent chapter when you are talking about, it is necessary for simulating some of the models, the approximate value should be known to you. Okay, I think with this idea you can start studying vehicle dynamics. Okay, right, this is totally an introductory topic just to give an idea what vehicle dynamics is all about. So now I'll summarize vehicle dynamics. Basically, we study the vehicle behavior under the influence of forces and torques. Now to study the behavior, mainly we are interested in three metrics. One is performance, second one is handling, and third one is ride. The complexity comes over here is you have to model the vehicle mathematically, and we should have data to substitute and simulate this thing, simulate the models. From post-processing those simulation results, we should be in a position to properly interpret, understand the parameter effect on that. We come across various parameters. Which parameter is affecting what, we must clearly understand, and how exactly we need to tune those parameters without affecting other performances. This is what you must clearly get it. So when we come across very complex models, manually solving those models will be quite complex. Depending on the situation, probably you can use MATLAB and Simulink models, or maybe you can use a commercial version of Adams software, and you can do so. Unless you have some kind of permission to enter into an automobile manufacturer's facility, it is difficult to get access to understand the testing facility and use of testing facility, and also how to test cars on proving ground. These are all things I think you need to have that kind of probably access, then you can understand vehicle dynamics very well. So with these few words, let us start learning vehicle dynamics. Till then, thank you.